I'm deeply honored to be here with you today, to be here at the University of the Arts, celebrating Commencement 2021. I'm also grateful because I know that there are just extraordinary artists in the world, any number of them who could be here tonight with you on this day, celebrating along with you. And for some reason, somehow, you decided to choose me. Why, I don't know, but I am deeply grateful. I personally know many, many, many artists. And I know that many of those artists, and I'm speaking to you as artists, I know that many of those artists will never, ever, 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 ever be given the same kind of accolade that I'm receiving today. They'll never have their work shown. There'll be very few museums that will take their work. There'll be very few galleries that will take their work. But we'll get to some of that just a little bit later. So I am honored. I want to thank, of course, the university for inviting me. I want to thank the Board of Governors for inviting me, the Board of Directors for inviting me, and of course, my longtime friend and colleague, President David Yeager, for inviting me to be here today. And I, of course, because none of us do any of what we do without the support of others, I'd like to thank, first of all, my husband, Jeffrey Joseph Hoon, who's been by my side for a number of years, helping me navigate the waters. My daughter, Faith, my aunt and uncle, Nell and Emmett Boone, for graciously giving me the space to become the artist that I am today. I could not be here, really, without their support, and I really do mean that. By our very nature, and by your very nature, you young artists sitting out there, by your very nature, you are expressive. You've centered your life on the emotional, on emotional appeal. And it's for this reason that you understand something about the expressive, about personal connection, about sensibility and sensitivity to the world, that you actually are not accountants and are indeed artists. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that as well for a moment, a sort of difference between expressive and being an accountant. Something that we should know as artists, something that we should be aware of, and that we shouldn't lose sight of because it's important. Regardless of who you are, regardless of where you come from, you are impacted by the system of art that exists around you. There's no doubt about it, and it will come back to haunt you again and again and again, some form or fashion. So I want to talk to you just a little bit about some facts that we should be aware of as you move into the world, move out into the world as artists. Of all of the solo exhibitions, for instance, given in 2007 by the Whitney Museum of American Art, 29% of them were women. In the year 2000, the Guggenheim had a number of solo exhibitions, but 0% of them actually went to women. In 2014, I became the first African-American, not African-American woman, but the first African-American to be given a solo exhibition at the Guggenheim Museum of New York City. That was 2014. In 2004, the great museum, one of my favorites, the Museum of Modern Art, reinstalled its permanent collection of over 410 works. Out of the 410 works on display, 16 of them were women. Not 16%, but 16 of them were women. Of course, there were even fewer people of color shown in that reinstall by one of our great museums. We also know that there's a huge disparity in the ways in which the work of women, the work of people of color has been historically valued. We can look at auctions and they tell us sort of profound information about how the work is actually viewed and how it's understood, and also how it's valued. And often the distance between what a woman might receive, a person of color might receive in terms of compensation for their work, it's not in the thousands, but it's in the millions, and sometimes in the hundreds of millions. For instance, at auction, the highest price ever paid for a living woman artist is $7 million. The highest price paid in around 2016, 17 for a man, living man, was $58 million. The most ever paid for the work by a deceased woman is $44 million. That was Georgia O'Keeffe. And $142 million for Francis Bacon. That's a difference of $100 million, actually, a little bit more than that. Georgia O'Keeffe said, you know, a lot of the men put me down and they say that I'm one of the better women painters. But she said, I think I'm actually one of the better painters. The highest price paid for the work of a woman, a female artist now, is $11 million. And that went for Joan Mitchell's Untitled in 1960, a 1960 work. At the Royal Auction price, the highest price paid for a man, at least in this period of time, was for Picasso, and that was $179 million. So we're talking about real difference in the ways in which work is valued, the way in which work is understood, the way in which work is appreciated, and things are changing. There's no doubt about that, but they're not changing yet that fast and that significantly, and it's something that you simply need to be aware of as artists as you move out into the world. What can you expect from the system in which you are going to be negotiating as you move through in your life? And even as you know this, and even as you know that it's difficult being an artist, that really you didn't really enter the game really to make a whole lot of money. Maybe some of you did, most of you didn't. Most of you didn't understand that, didn't want that for yourselves. You wanted something else for yourself. But even knowing this, we've now entered this sort of remarkable and unprecedented situation within this country. And we know that in the next few years, we thought that it was going to be around 2022 or so, 2025, that this great country, that the vast majority of this country is moving from a majority minority to a majority minority country, moving from white to black in varying shades of brown, that people of color will be the majority of people in this country. And of course, the battle around democracy at this moment has a great deal to do with this extraordinary shift in the demographics that are taking place in the country. I first heard about this vast demographic shift in 1984 from the president of Bank of America, who gave the commencement address at San Francisco State College. Now, everybody, of course, is completely aware that this demographic shift is happening in every institution, university, corporation, gallery, museum. All of our institutions are paying heavy attention to this changing demographic and what it means. Between this fact and the new tools of social media, from internet to Snapchat and Instagram and beyond, and all of these platforms, we really have entered an unprecedented time, something never seen quite before like this in the United States of America. Not only are we living through a tremendous pandemic that has taken over 3 million lives worldwide, we're also looking at this sort of extraordinary mass of uprising of the lives around George Floyd, or the life of George Floyd. and the mass uprising that caused. It was the straw that broke the camel's back, and millions of people around the world took to the streets, understanding for the first time that this was real and that something needed to be done. We're also looking, of course, at the extreme rise of the right and their forces and their threat to democracy. We saw that on January 6th in the storming of the Capitol. At the same time, we're looking for the first time and looking to our first VP, the Vice President of the United States, who is a brown woman of Black and Asian descent. It is truly an unprecedented time. And so now, then, this comes to you. What does this profound moment and all of these effects, this shift, have to do with you? And how will you, as artists, as thinkers and makers, respond to this personally, politically, artistically, politically? As artists and thinkers, you're going to be responding to these shifting sands. And how will you use this moment to begin crafting new modes of thought, being, and purpose? As artists, what effect will this have on your creative output, the way in which you explore the world? And just as the larger world is changing, so is the art world, moving outside of the white box of the gallery, and museums and exhibitions are moving to the streets, taking to the streets in new ways. I mean, consider, for instance, the work of Mark Bradford, Mel Chen, Suzanne Lacy, Amaya Mesa Baines, the Astor Gates, Rick Lowe, only to name a few, and their practice both as fine artists coupled with their social and civic engagement. Their practice is mapping new territories and new methods, new ways of working. And you don't necessarily have to like them, but we have to understand that their practice is absolutely developing new modes that we need to consider in this critical time. Every day, every single day, each and every one of us makes a number of choices. All day long, you're making a number of choices about what you're going to do, how you're going to act, how you're going to proceed. And I'm curious to know how you use all of that, how you use all of those choices to make choices that bring you closer to the thing that you want most in the world. How does it bring you closest to your practice? All of the choices that you make, how do they lead you closer to your goal, to your ambition, to your mission, to the thing that you want most in the world? And I ask that because I know how important it is. And I know how difficult it is to hold on to your goals and to your beliefs, to your compass, your moral compass, but also knowing that there's something really imperative about understanding that every day you are making a set of choices that will either take you closer or farther away from the thing that you set out to do. And one of the most important things about being an artist is your ability to hold on tight as you ride the wave, because it's not an easy choice that you've made. So knowing this, how will you engage? How will you practice now? What are you committed to? What do you care about? What do you want? Who do you serve? How are you going to respond to this great shift? And all of this requires extraordinary imagination and keen innovation. But this is your time. This is your moment. This is it. And so you have to seize it, because believe me, it's short and it goes fast. I'm just going to talk just a little bit more because I think it does matter. And I hope that that's all right. I hope I'm not taking too much time here. I want to talk to you a bit about what it means to be successful. Now, I have no idea actually what this means for you. Only you really know that. But I do know that sooner or later, each of you as young artists will have to determine for yourselves what success is and what failure is for you. You'll have to establish and set your own standards. Mine won't necessarily work for you. Working as an artist is one of the most difficult things that I do, and at the same time, it's the only thing that I can do. So what I want to do now for this moment, I want to sort of take us back, or maybe I should say, I want us to zoom ahead. I want you to ride with me just for a moment and zoom ahead, and let's move into the future tense to look back. You are now, let's say, in your 30s, past perfect, future tense. Of all of the possibilities, you alone held probable cause and turned to the world of art, seeking an answer to this one question. Who will control your production? Who will control your energy, your time, and your life? Will it be you or some other force? I ask this question because what good is there if the world is all knowledge and there's no mystery, there's no wisdom, and there's no mercy? Answering this question of who will control you and your production becomes your obsession, your preoccupation, your driving force, the hound dog on your tail. Somewhere along the line, you made the decision that making art spoke to your deeper need and that you held the key to both its mystery and its depth. But moving forward, you discover that making art is extremely difficult, requiring tremendous energy and effort, enormous sacrifice, great risk, and some cold hard cash to boot. And knowing this, you nevertheless stand at the precipice and leap into the abyss, into the arms of uncertainty. Open and alert, you respond sensitively to the world around you, and it causes you a great deal of pain and tremendous trepidation. But of course, these are the natural byproducts of living a closely examined life. You work and you work and you work, and you're determined to wrestle this thing called art to the ground, commanding it and getting on top of those materials is your thing. But your vision is not yet formed. Your work does not yet bear your distinctive mark, your unique hand, your DNA. Providence for the moment seems to have left you high and dry. And in your despair, you toss and turn, crying yourself to sleep night after night, endlessly doubting your ability and feeling at times like a motherless child. Searching high and low for your own voice, your own expressive utterance, you lead yourself down paths that dissipate. You seek answers in forbidden places, in empty lots, vacant spaces. Landing in that ageless labyrinth, you stumble past trick mirrors and smoke-filled bottles. Reality bent towards destruction and distortion are confused, it's confused and fuzzy. And you begin to imagine that all the world is conspiring against you. Bad luck, black cat bone, mojo hand, born under a bad side, or born under a bad sign. And it can be tough. And yet and still you pursue this thing. You pursue this art because it gives you no rest. That expressive utterance is key to who you are. And determined to make a way out of no way, you rise every day and you hit it back to the studio. Art is a demanding thing, a demanding mistress. And work at times appears to be your only friend, and sometimes it seems to turn its back on you too. That being in the studio, that thirst, that hunger, that drive to make, to be. It's an extraordinary thing, pulling on all yourself to do this thing, to express yourself through the form of practice that you've chosen as an artist. Some of you, overwhelmed by the fight and exhausted, hang back, and then you drop out. Some of you, with no apparent effort on your part, you meet Lady Luck and you sail on into the sunset, a silver lining shrouding you, your guardian angel providing a halo over your head, and success seems to just welcome you with open arms no matter what you do. And then for others who are dwelling long and hard, who are making extraordinary work, success seems to elude you, dodges you, avoids all of your effort. There are no gallery shows, no museum exhibitions, no publications, little recognition, and everything seems to be slipping away as you try to hold on to that thing that you felt as though you were born to do. But in your spare time, between sleep, family, husband, wife, lover, friend, companion, you somehow continue to work sometimes. But your work and your effort, misunderstood, exacts a heavy toll, and you pay a heavy price. Flat broke. Your parents think that now you're a loser. You're freeloading. They've thrown money down the drain by sending you to college for visual arts in the first place, throwing good money after bad. The kids now consider you a bad father or a worse mother, and your mother says, "Child, get a job." But in the midst of the storm, you stood your ground somehow. You've managed to stand your ground, and without fear or retribution, you challenge the traditions that seem to deny you and your rightful voice a place. You continued to work in spite of it all. You came to distinguish the difference between the art world and the world of art. And you came to know full well that you did not enter this thing called art for the money, but because you did it because you had to. You did it for the love of the thing, for the glory of the experience, for a finely tuned and craft eye towards that thing that you desired most in the world. And so 30 years later, you're looking back over your life, you're looking back over your time, you're looking back over the sacrifices that you've made, and you have absolutely no regrets at all, because you entered this to be expressive, and that is who you are, and that is who you will be going forward. Take this time, seize it, cherish it, do everything that you can with it. This life belongs to you. I wish you well. Congratulations.